Hi, welcome to Clutter Bravado.
Yes, and it's the energy. It's not just about the stuff.
So we should probably just get into it, right?
Let's go.
Good afternoon, Laurent.
Is it already afternoon, Elyse?
I'm pretty sure. Oh, no, almost.
Ah.
It's still morning, I guess.
We
Hi.
have 2 minutes, right? 3?
A
10?
few, yeah.
Good morning, then. Because it's been a morning, and I'd like to not be afternoon.
Oh, are you having a bad day?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's fair. I feel like on this podcast, we talk a lot about like the positives and we're always focused on that. But something that happens in this industry is every once in a while, you have a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
So what
Yeah,
do you do when you have a bad day?
So I meditate. I listen to teachers of meditation, and I doesn't do anything. I bitch and I moan and I'm upset, and I want to. I even went to punch a boxing bag this morning, and it helped for a few seconds.
Oh, that's great.
I listened to a meditative speech. It helped for about 35 seconds, and that's it. And I'm just pissed.
You know
That's
what?
okay.
That's fair.
Yeah,
You get to feel that. You get to be mad today.
I get to be mad today.
I
And
do love that
hopefully
you-
they'll stop, but
Yeah, I do love that you still like revert to your kickboxing roots sometimes. And you just need to like
it
take
did
it
help
out on a heavy bag, you know?
for 15 minutes. It was good.
Yeah.
So I had a good 15 minutes today.
Okay.
So far.
Great.
But it's only noon, so the day is young. Could get worse or could get better. I don't know yet.
I have a feeling it's going to get better.
Good. I'm gonna go and have lunch in the sun. What about
That's
you?
great. Listen, I'm doing fine. And I know that that's probably really irritating because when I'm having a bad day, I want everyone around me to have a bad day too. But I also want to have the worst of those days so that everyone understands that my struggle is harder. Personally, that's how I feel. Now, I will say I woke up real cranky today. Every once in a while, that'll happen. I'm a woman. We have those experiences. You wake up cranky. But then I lifted weights.
Oh wow.
I did a bunch of very heavy squats today. And I don't know what it is. I feel like it must be something that's like very primal about this, but like, I don't know. There's like a certain time of the month that doing like heavy squats feels so satisfying where I just get out this like energy that is like pent up in my muscles and my bones. And like the girl that was working out like with me today, she was like in the exact same mood. We got there, we were cranky. We're on like the warm-up bike, just like, I don't want to be here. This is awful. And then both of us did like heavier weights than we ever have before. It was really cool. That was a really cool experience for me, honestly. But other than that, I would say, I'm doing fine. Oh my gosh. I told you to watch a movie. Did you watch it?
I did.
I told you to watch Mountainhead. I watched Mountainhead. Now, there are a couple of things that are very exciting about that film. As a film itself, I thought it was fine. It was cool. It was a neat idea. It's not my favorite movie now, I thought it was interesting. But it takes place in a house in Utah, in the mountains. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, hold on a second. I recognize that lamp. I recognize that light fixture. I recognize that chair. Like there were so many pieces that were used to design that house that are produced or created by either our friends or guests that we've had on the show.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
So I watched that movie. I noticed obviously the interiors because it's pretty obvious, and it's a big part of the movie.
It is a big part of the movie, yeah.
And then the day after, I listened to a podcast with Peter Thiel. Oh. And I wish I'd listened to that podcast prior to watch the movie.
Yeah.
Because, in the dialogues, there's a lot of, how do you say it, politically correct, a lot of bullshit coming out of those people. And you're like, they're making that thing up.
Yes.
And it's, some of it, you don't even understand what they were talking about. I mean, I didn't understand what they were talking about. I was like completely lost. And then when you listen to the real people, it's the same. So in fact, this movie is really well done.
I thought
and
it was
whoever
really, yes.
wrote that movie has spent a bit of time
It was the
with
same
those.
writer of Succession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
which makes sense.
He's very, very good
Yeah.
because yeah, when you listen to Steve Carell and then you listen to Peter Thiel, well, it's about the same. Nothing makes sense, and there are ideas that are just not, they think that because they have that much money, they're not bound by common sense anymore. It's fantastic.
Or like mortality. Yeah.
It's absolutely so. That's my take on that movie. Is that I really wish I'd understood it a little bit better, but the interior is cool.
Yeah. Okay. The interiors are very cool. I do have to plug one other thing. My friend is in that movie.
Oh yeah, that's true. You mentioned
my friend
that.
Allie Kincaid. She's in the beginning, and you hear her voice throughout the rest of the film. And she's like one of the characters' like assistants or like co-worker, I guess. I think assistant. But she did such a great job. She did such an incredible job in that movie. And she's like so great at like subtly acting. I love her. So Allie Kincaid, shout out to you. You did such a great job. I immediately like messaged her where I was like, oh, that's so cool. But yes, it was also really cool to see like Alison Berger's light fixtures in that film, to see our friend Alex Purcell's lamp featured in that film. There were just like little details that were really interesting. And now that I am like hyper tuned into a lot of these designs, it's easier for me to spot them out in the wild. And there's something that feels really validating about that, or just like, I don't know. Like there's that one, that speech that Kate Hudson gives in Almost Famous, where she talks about how anytime that you're lonely, you can just go to the record store and hang out with your friends, because she like hangs out with all these rock stars. And I kind of feel that when I am getting to know so many designers and getting to see the places that they've designed and the furniture and their accessories or their light fixtures or whatever. And anytime that I'm feeling like lacking inspiration, I can just go check those things out because they're everywhere. And it's so cool. Being able to spot them in films is really special. So I wanted to give a shout out to that film. I'm glad that you watched it and that you had an experience with it. I also have thoughts on...
Yeah. I hope you do.
I have opinions, thoughts, reflections about some of the writing in there. I thought it was really, really smart. And also the one thing that I will say about that is when you write a character that is quote unquote brilliant and is able to connect everything but his own place in the world, I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, no, it was, and the acting was, all the acting was really good.
Yeah.
So I think that overall it was a very, very good movie. Talking about movie, I met someone who worked on A Few Good Men.
Yes, we went to this event together. So one of my dear friends, and who you also know through the yoga studio.
Yeah.
So I teach yoga, and one of my yoga students, his name is Sam Dever, and
Who has a good podcast.
He has a great podcast, the Sam Dever podcast, and he invited the two of us, because we have a podcast, to go to one of his events, and he put on this incredible event. I am so proud of him, but also I was so inspired when I left.
Yeah.
Called Produce Your Passion. And he had a panel that he was talking to other people who are creators that are just like letting go of any of the obstacles in the way, the financial obstacles, the mental obstacles, the actual like putting on a production is so challenging of any kind, whether it's a film or a movie or art or whatever it is that you're doing. If you have a vision, how to just plow through and make that thing happen. And one of his guests was fun. Yeah, oh my gosh, that was so cool. It was so cool. And he's an acting teacher now.
I know. So he had a huge part in A Few Good Men.
Yes, his name is Wolf. He's cool.
And so so I watched that movie again.
Yeah. Yes. What was your experience watching it again after the last time you've seen it?
It's amazing because it's one of, I don't know if it's one of my favorite movies, but that scene of that last court scene between Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, I for some reason connected with me. But so I didn't remember Wolf having such a big, important role in the movie.
Yeah.
I remembered, Tom Cruise and Nicholson. So watching it back now, knowing him, he had a huge role. And what we learned last week,
it was his first role.
It was his first role, and he was not even
he wasn't an actor. Yeah.
And that was just mind-blowing because when he said that, I was like, yeah, he's in the movie. And really, I just remembered that last scene where he's sitting there. And then watching it again, I'm like, shit, that was a huge part.
It was a huge role, yeah.
So, life gives you, surprises. And he jumped on it. And now I get also, it's funny because it's like, now I get a little bit more what he was saying.
Yeah.
Get it better now that I saw the movie a second time. But that was, or third or fourth, I don't remember. But yeah, it was fantastic. So
I think that you should pursue acting a little bit. We've talked about this, not on the show, off camera.
Yeah, just let's keep it off camera. I started sweating already.
Really?
Yeah, look at me. I'm blushing. So maybe it's a dream. Maybe I don't say no anymore.
Just take an acting class. Just like see what it's like. I've taken acting classes throughout my career out here in Los Angeles, and I will say that even if you don't apply it to going out and auditioning or trying to become a movie star or something, you can just have the experience of being in an acting class. It's great.
If someone needs a Metro D, I could do that.
I'm sorry. You would be a maitre. No.
A great waiter. Would you like the sea bass or the beef tenderloin? No?
That's so weird. That's so weird.
See? You're starting. I'm not a good actor. I told you.
No, you would be great in that part, but why would you aim for that? Aim for something else. You could be a spy. Or an assassin.
Or an assassin.
An assassin. You could, if you wanted to.
What?
Are you a spy? See, you're such a great actor. You convinced me for a second there that you might be.
How did you know? Now I have to kill you.
No.
On camera.
You put that out there in the world. Now everyone's going to know.
If tomorrow or something happens to you, I'm in jail.
Yeah, you're a bad spy. That's what I've learned. You're a really, really bad assassin.
So let's get to our guest because she's just, I don't know, she's an incredible woman.
Yeah.
I love her energy.
Peti Lau.
Yep.
So we got to sit down with her right after she was featured on the cover of Luxe Magazine. And I don't know, there's something that's so special about getting the cover of a magazine, even if print media is not as big as it once. That's a big deal. That's so cool. And it was such an incredible space that she had designed too. You attended her party.
She had she had a little party at Degorney, which we still have to go there.
I haven't been,
which was really fun on the roof deck.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a lovely house. Degorney did an amazing job in that place. There are quite a few showrooms that I love, but two that are pretty outstanding in my mind are both apparatus showrooms, both in LA and New York, and Degorney. The attention to detail, the design, the offering, it's just it's well thought out. Yeah. It's tastefully done. No matter what the money, we're not talking about the budget. I'm talking about the creativity, and I'm impressed.
Wow. Yeah.
It's really impressive.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Peti she's worked with them quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think she uses their product and quite a bit, and so it was a really fun event, and obviously the cover is the Degorney wallpaper. So
it's beautiful.
And
we'll be putting it all over our Instagram and everything. So anyone who's listening to this and doesn't have the visual is going to be able to check it out. And so we should probably get to it, but real quick, I just want to plug. She's so rad. And she's really cool and super stylish. I really, really loved interviewing her. And this was the first of the interviews that we did in this room. So yeah, I think it should be pretty sick, right?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, should we get to it?
We should get to it. Let's go.
Welcome to Clutter Bravado. We are here with Peti Lau. Hi.
Hi.
How
Good
are
morning.
you?
Good morning.
It is such a pleasure to have you here. I've been a really big fan of your work.
Thank you.
And also, most recently, you were featured on the cover of Luxe Magazine.
Yes, thank you.
That is such an honor, and it's really incredible. You've done some really amazing work. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about your evolution as a designer, where you started and where you are now. So can you walk me through that in you can go the long way, you can go the short way, however
Go
you
the
want.
long way.
I was going to say, do you want the long version or the short version?
Give us the long version.
So I started out, I think the story kind of starts out as like a creative. I think ever since I was a child, I was always creative and I was very musical. And throughout my teenage years, I was training to be an opera singer.
Yeah, I read that on your about me on your website. I'm I had no idea. You never talk about that. That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I was very adamant. I felt very blessed at that age to have this gift to sing. And then when my father passed away when I was 18, I was like, oh no, I don't think I want to be a singer, or not in the same way. So, but I was very adamant, I wanted to go to Juilliard. I was
Wow.
quite serious, and I wanted competition. And so that was very, I was very involved. And so when I basically decided that I didn't really want to be an opera singer, I still wanted to be a musician, I kind of spent 10 years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so that involved moving to San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
In a little Geo Tracker. I drove cross country. And
Oh, wow.
No way.
I had $800 in my pocket. I was 18. And it was I need to get out of Virginia, Washington, D.C. area where I grew up because it was too conservative. And so I ended up in San Francisco. I started, lived there for 5 years. And then I had an opportunity to move to Thailand. I was traveling there. I went to Thailand to go travel there for 3 months. And then my plan was actually to move to LA and become a stylist. I wanted to be a fashion stylist.
I love it. Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out everything. And then so I ended up meeting my first ex-husband who lived in Thailand, who was an American. And so I was like, okay, I'm moving to Thailand. I'm going to live in Thailand. And I live on a tropical island and basically retire at the age of 21.
Oh my God.
So I kind of did things opposite and quite.
Yeah.
So basically, I ended up there, and then I was I started a restaurant. I started a clothing line in India where I was manufacturing stuff, and that was really kind of what brought me back to creating something. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow, I really like this. And when I was in theater, I remembered I directed a play, and I loved having the ability to see a vision in my head and then come to life and see it. And so that was the closest thing I had ever experienced that felt like something similar. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up designing a restaurant for a hotel, not even thinking about being a designer. And if you watch the third season of White Lotus,
Mm-hmm.
that really brought flashbacks and felt like my life.
Oh,
I lived
wow,
on a
yeah.
resort. I did all that. And so I had a friend's father who was British that lived in Russia, and they would come and try. They worked in oil and gas, so they were very affluent, and they basically bought villas on the island. Mm-hmm. Came to my restaurant and was like, "Oh, I like what you did. Do you want to help me?" And I'm like, "Sure, okay." And so that's how it started. I basically had someone give me an opportunity, and then his financial advisor, who became basically my one client. And he was like, oh, I'm building a 9,000 square foot house in Mauritius. Do you want to help me? I was 25 at the time.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay. And he's like, oh, I want a red Chinese bordello. This is the style I want. And it's a very Thai looking house.
Yeah.
And so I basically became his private decorator for 2 years.
Oh,
He flew
wow.
me around. I had 2 projects, and we bought 2 places in Dubai. Mm-hmm. The house in Mauritius that we built. And then we had another place one in Koh Samui where I was living, and then another place in Jomtien, which is right outside of Pattaya. So we basically, I would teach myself, I would read books and buy a bunch of, just delve into it. I found people to make things for me, and then him and I would go to Chiang Mai, which is up north, and I found a furniture manufacturer to build out of furniture, built teak wood. We bought antiques that were from Burma, and so we basically kind of did this whole and furnished this house. We would go to Chiang Mai up north, which is where they make a lot of furniture. And so we would go antiquing, and we would design furniture, and then we would basically put it into a container and then ship it to Mauritius and kind of furnish this house. And so
Wow, yeah.
that was basically how I got started. And then I would go to the markets and I would buy things, and so I was like, wow, I'm really good at this. I was like, I really enjoy. And, really the key thing was that it was the first time that I felt important, because I had imposter syndrome for those 10 years trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do. And so I relate that story of being a singer, because that was a very, I felt like I knew exactly what I wanted. And then when that course changed, that changed the course of my life, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so when interior design found me, I was like, this is my purpose. I'm going to do this until I'm 90. Thank God I hope not. But, but I was like, this is it. And so that's real. And then so I decided to move back to the States, because I was gone for the whole Bush administration, Junior. And anyway, then so I basically was like, Obama was getting elected, and there felt like a new change in my life. I was getting divorced, and I was like, okay, I'm going to move to New York, and I'm going to go to design school. So that's what I did. So I basically packed my stuff, and then I moved to New York City, and I went to New York School of Interior Design.
Wow.
And that's basically where that was the second phase. That's kind of where I so I had a pre-design, where I had a client and kind of doing stuff on my own, and then self-taught, and then basically went back to design school and then did that. And then when I was done, I worked for a couple of other design firms. I worked for Coleman and Kravis. I worked for Fort Hunterford, and then I worked at iCrave and Jeff Lincoln. So those were kind of a few places that I had kind of dipped my feet in.
Yeah.
And then, so I always feel like my career is starting, even though it's been 20 years.
No, that's really interesting, because you already had a career, you had clientele, and you were working, but then you went to school after that. So what do you feel are some major changes that you experienced after having gone to school? How did that inform your design business?
I think it was really important for me to, I wanted to go to school because I wanted to learn the language, and I wanted to be educated. And also because when I didn't end up going to college, because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was just basically living my life and going and traveling around the world and getting the school, the school of life, and learning that. And so I felt like it was really important for me to take this seriously and have that discipline to educate myself and knew what I was talking about, and dedicating, my time in studying, design and architecture.
Yeah.
So that was, and so I think that really was the one kind of the step in investing in myself and making that big change. And then I think from there, it's it's ebbs and flows of where your career goes.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you were first getting started, because were you working with a team? Did you have a lot of people that you were leading, or people that you were working along with, or were you really self-driving?
You mean before I went to school?
Yeah, before you went to school.
When I had those projects?
Yeah.
No, I was self-driving.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it. Being 20, I think one of the challenges that I had when I was in Mauritius, and I was this tiny little Asian woman, and I was 25, and coming and working with a country that I didn't really know or speak the language, and basically boss them around. I think that was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
And, trying to get people to do what you're asking them. I think that was really hard. I remember one time I met a wallpaper hanger who was basically a painter, but that was doing the job. But then he got drunk on the job. Yeah, this is and here's the funny thing, there's a thing called island people, I lived on a lot of islands, tropical islands, and Mauritius is also an island, and you just have this kind of island mentality. And they were just getting drunk, and he was wasted. And then it was very expensive Roma wallpaper that had the velvet.
Yeah.
And it was smudging all over. And then I basically was arguing with him that I wouldn't pay him. And then he was gonna call the cops on me. And I was like, dude, you didn't do the job. So that was really challenging. I think one being a woman, one being kind of on the petite side, that you feel you almost have to do Napoleon's complex, and you're having to fight for to get the job done and get people to do what you ask.
Slight change of pace between the island and New York City. It's whoa.
Different island. Yeah.
Different island.
Different island.
Different pace.
Yeah, totally. So now I'm on the mainland.
Yeah.
Right. a more sustainable pace.
Yeah.
So your style as a designer when you were working on your like early jobs versus now. I mean, I look at your work now and I would play with the word maximalism a little bit with you. You have a really strong, bold voice, and I think that's really incredible. Do you feel like you started off with a bold voice as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I started off with this particular client that was all just very like eccentric. He was like, "Who says like I want a red Chinese bordello for a bedroom?"
Yeah.
You know? And he hired like some muralist that like painted, temples and like had his like master bedroom and like so he was very very eccentric. And I think that really, I think what I was really good at is color, and I think that's something that really kind of from then. Like developing the sense of color and the hues, I think still is very prominent in my work now. So I feel like it's changing in the context of, I think it has a very like, it's a very layered look. I think where maybe some of the previous stuff that I did like 5 or 10 years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, was much more very like pattern centric, very layered, very kind of maximalist, a lot of like, you know. And now I think my work is still layered, but it's a more sophisticated layer.
Yeah.
So it's not as so much pattern, but still kind of more right in the middle between texture and pattern. People always ask me like, how do you like read people? And I always say you're either a color lover or a texture lover.
Oh, interesting.
You know, people who are extroverted are typically color lovers. You know, people who are introverted are most likely texture lovers. They like to be
That's
soft.
really
and subdued.
interesting. I haven't. Yeah.
So I ask people, and so when usually people tell me like the type of colors that they like, will help me determine the type of people that they are. And sometimes when you have a couple, it's try to find that middle ground between the two. And
because
so,
an extrovert and an introvert will usually end up together.
Yeah, exactly. It's that balance. And so I think what my work has evolved to, and what I really what I find interesting is that in the middle. So like whether I like white, like I like creamy taupey colors, but it's right in the middle between cool and warm.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so I like to play with kind of like right in that middle zone. Whether some people do super warm stuff, it's like very, rich in hue, or some people just do creams and they do that very well. So I kind of like to go in the middle. I like to try to find that like that little in between where it could go cool or it could go warm. And it's right in that middle is where I think my work has evolved.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, because you've done a bit with antiques, so, especially, and you still do incorporate that a little bit. But what's your furniture-wise, what's your go-to? What's your favorite style?
My favorite style is 70s Italian.
Okay.
I
nice.
love that. And now it's so popular.
Yeah.
It's so huge. It's so, when I was in Milan, like it was just everywhere. This resurgency of
I can see that because it's nice to incorporate with colors and
yeah, it's just so sexy. And I mean, when I look back at old interior books of the 70s, I just love the way it's just glamorous, but it's super like architectural and it's super kind of like sexy. I love that. I think that particular period is just, and it's a very specific aesthetic. Not everyone really likes it or can or understands it.
Yeah.
But there's a glamour and sexiness to it that I really like.
Yeah. Is that something that's a little bit heartbreaking when there's something that you are really obsessed with, that you really love, and then it suddenly becomes trendy?
I think that what I call that is the collective consciousness, that people are kind of like, they're gravitating, you're seeing it, and then it comes and people are adapting to it, or they're finding it, and then it becomes into the people's consciousness, and they're like, oh yeah, this is like what I'm into. You know? I think as a designer is something that it's, constantly trying to find something that's like a little spark of it, right? And then finding a way to like dive deeper into a different like direction. Like for example, I think like, I feel like people really into mid-century. But for me, I really do love mid-century, but I like the stuff that's not the typical mid-century.
Yeah.
The things that really were kind of like almost like artists that weren't really known or that popular, but had a really incredible practice.
Yeah.
So I like to find those types of things, So I think that trends always come and go, and I think trends are important because it really helps determine what people are kind of gravitating towards. But then if that's a trend, I try to not do the opposite, but try to like dive into a little deeper than what's the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. When you are finding something or when you're finding inspiration, what are some resources that you used for like researching like the history of like who are these designers that are sort of under the radar?
I mean, I hate to say it, but like Instagram is such a great
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone is putting out content, that and I think it's like a rabbit hole. I hate to say it too, is Pinterest.
Really still?
Pinterest,
Yeah.
I used to use Pinterest, and then I
Yeah.
don't use Pinterest anymore. And then lately, I kind of got back onto Pinterest a little bit, and it's incredible how you can literally like find an image, and then it leads you to sourcing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good and bad, but mostly it's books.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
okay.
old design
Yeah.
books.
I think that she forgets traveling too, because you are
Oh,
out.
yeah, that's right. You're
you travel
everywhere. Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, that's my addiction.
It's a healthy addiction.
So when you are picking a place to travel, like what are your favorite places to go to visit?
Oh, so places that I get to go back are quite that's special because if you're wanting to go back, there's a sense of familiarity. So I really love going to Correas in Mexico. I think that place is like magical, and it's basically like the Mexican Riviera is what they call it, and it's just incredible little enclave of it's very aristo-freak. People were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it used to be aristo." I was like, "Yeah, I dropped it." But it's still very aristo-freak. It's basically kind of this really special, like, little piece of property that this family basically started building, and the architecture you'll see a lot of it in AD. And it's kind of got this it's been around since like the 70s, and kind of the evolution of like old Korea's type of architecture, like little, really colorful. It's kind of got a baragan, kind of like, a lot of the concrete, the plaster work, and, but very tropical with, the palapas and stuff, and just these stunning views. But as it's evolving, and every time I go back, I get to see a new villa that's being built, and then it's a much more contemporary, aesthetic, but still of that style. So Correas is a place I've been often, and I really enjoy it there. I really also, Paris, duh.
Yeah, duh.
Of course.
Paris.
Love it.
I'm really dying to go back to Thailand, of course, since like White Lotus, everyone's like, oh.
When was the last time you were there?
It was 2015.
Okay.
It's been a while. Oh,
Yeah.
God, it's 10 years.
Yeah.
How is 2015 10 years ago? I'm not prepared for that.
I know. Mexico City and Oaxaca are the places that I've been frequenting quite often, like once a year. And then of course Italy. My partner, his dad lives in Piedmonte, and so we always go there once a year. And we also do Venice.
Nice.
We've been doing Venice once a year.
The Biennale?
Yeah, we do the Biennale. We usually go in the fall, so it's a little bit quieter. And we rent a little Airbnb, so it's really, so we feel like we kind of get a chance to explore it. And I also, a few years back, I went with Fortuny, with the brothers, and went on this group. And so I really kind of got to see like the underbelly of like Venice and the culture, and it's really special and unique. So
wow,
that's the least you can say. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then ever since then I was like, oh, I'm gonna manifest like every year I'm gonna come to Venice, and it's happening.
I love it. Oh, so you're a powerful manifester. I love that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh wow. There have been some times that I've like dabbled in that, and when I do it, and when I really focus, I'm able to like I'm able to manifest some things. But like I've been so distracted lately, and I wonder why. Being in LA right now.
I think we need to manifest more.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to talk about where you're going. What is up next for you? What are some things that you're interested in trying or that you're seeking out? Like, what are you manifesting next?
Good question. I'm asking myself that same question too.
Venice?
Venice in Italy?
Venice.
My gosh.
Yeah, not talking about Venice, LA. I'm talking about
Venice, Italy.
Italy.
Well, what's her name? Diana von Furstenberg just basically bought this incredible palazzo, and like this is where where she's living the next phase of her life.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, there's definitely like a thing going on there.
Yeah.
I drink the Kool-Aid there. I'm into it. It's just a magical city.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Like, I'm at this point where it's been 20 years, but I've had my business for 11 years. And then, you know, all of the press that just that's been coming is, you know, is wonderful. It kind of was a nice way to kind of wrap up the past like decade. And now I'm really thinking about like what's next, you know? I'm trying, you know, before I think like, you know, a while back when I first started, I was like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, you know, and I think as I mature, I feel like I want to be much more intentional in the type of projects that I want to be doing. And, you know, you know, I think people are always like, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And, you know, and everyone kind of like giving you like this, I'm like, no, I just need to focus on doing really good work.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
and I think just, you know, having more interesting, you know, architecture. And I think also it's been really important in this phase of like Los Angeles rebuilding. You know, I feel like a lot of people have left and there's kind of a negative, you know, people kind of like shit talk about Los Angeles at the moment. And I just feel like it's really important for me to like be the opposite and be really grounded and really, you know, represent and really like make my roots here and be a part of a bigger part of the community and helping like what the next phase is, and whether it's design or community. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm just really sinking my feet and my roots more into Los Angeles, and you know, the Phoenix will rise.
Yeah.
You're a huge part of the design community in LA, and also with Edel and
The Apida.
the Apida.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I'm on the board for Design LA, which
Also,
that's
yeah.
been, so that's, and then also with APIDA, which is the, you know, Asian American Pacific Design Alliance, such a mouthful. Yeah, and so sometimes you know, I try to be, involved.
No, you're doing quite a good job at it, which is fantastic because that's growing as well. I mean, I see it growing like crazy. You're doing quite a bit of events, but with that organization.
They've been great. It takes a village. And it's been incredibly successful to see how many people are so excited about it and how everyone's just, you know, stepped in. It happened like, I mean, during COVID when it was kind of getting started, Jessica Davis had like reached out to me. She's like, hey, we're starting this. And I think I did a little window during Legends. I think it was like 2022. Or I don't remember, 2023, maybe, I can't remember, but a couple years back. And I was like, oh, let's celebrate Asian makers. So we had Robert Koh, we had like a Vietnamese designer, and kind of do like this whole, and then from there, we had this party, and then it's been like such an incredible, this huge, and everyone's excited about it. You know, everyone's like this fresh young energy, and and so now we're having a gala that we're planning for next year.
Fun.
Oh, that's great.
To really help fundraise for the you know, the organization, and the organization has become a national organization.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been pretty exciting, and it's amazing to see this small thing a bunch of people put together, and you know, laying down the roots, and literally like hoping what it's going to become for the next, you know, several generations, or you know, however long it'll be. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're definitely a community creator, but also someone who's works really well with other people. And you've built this incredible network around you, and you've landed yourself in an incredibly strong network as well. So how have you noticed that has supported you throughout your career and where you want to go next?
Oh, that's a good question. Wait, so ask me that again. Just the sentence, the last part.
Yeah, how do you feel that your community and network has helped you through your career thus far, and where you're going next?
I feel incredibly blessed to have the support of all of the people, whether it's in the publishing or publicists or vendors or designers. I think, you know, I think that, you know, being able to like pool all of these different favors and ask has been just kind of me also showing up to the events that they put on together and really building. It's, you know, I feel like, I don't know. I think just showing up.
Yeah. That really is the key to it. Like, no, people will remember you and remember your name and remember your work when they see you and talk to you and you ask them about themselves. Like, you have to build the relationships with people, and that's really like how it happens, you know.
But what's fun too, because I see it as slightly younger generation, your group.
Yeah, definitely.
And I see your interaction, and it's fun because you share a ton of resources, you share a ton of ideas. I mean, there's a community there. Partly here, you still have half a foot, a toe in New York.
Yeah, half a toe in New York. Yeah, and see, and to answer your question, that was basically, a whole, like my time when I spent in New York, and which I still do. I'm still quite involved in New York. And so I think merging between the two has been extremely helpful in bringing a lot of like those resources and those connections, and then also into LA, but building different types of connections here.
Yeah, yeah. That's really, I mean, that is something that I admire so much too. Like, I'm very, very new on the scene in Los Angeles, and you're definitely one of the names that everybody knows, and that, you've really made a name for yourself here as a designer, but also as, like I said, like a community builder and someone who's really involved. So.
And she cooks really well too.
Really? Oh, like you're a restaurateur, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I do have like one more question when it comes to like your style as a designer, because you talked a little bit about Aristofreak, and you said that you're not really like with that anymore too much, but talk to me a little bit about that.
So Aristofreak was something that I trademarked. It's not that it's not that I've dropped it. It's just like, I'm just, I think when I created it, it was almost very much like a brand, and it was always kind of this idea, and I wanted it to create like a style, like that people who do get it, they're like, oh my God, that's so me.
Yeah.
I get
Right.
it,
Yeah.
And really initially and it really started when, I'll confess how I got it. It was my second ex-husband.
Okay.
It's always a laughter. But I was at a wedding in Italy, and I was traveling between like Dubai and Mauritius because I was working on these projects. And I ended up meeting, anyway, and so he basically sat next to me at the dinner. And I was telling him like, oh, where I came, I was like, oh, I just came back from Dubai and blah, blah. He was like, oh, and when I later found out when we got together, years later, he told me, he's like, oh, I thought you were so Aristofreak. And I'm like, what's that?
Nice.
And it was basically, it was in a party in the 80s in Italy, in Milan, that were called Aristofreaks. And Aristofreak to me, just visually, is basically like Talitha Getty and Paul Getty when they were like in Morocco. Basically aristocrats that were basically being bohemians.
Yeah, got it.
It's
okay.
like, Trustafarians kind of. And, I lived in Thailand, and in Thailand, there would be a lot of Trustafarians that would come through, to the islands, and they were like, oh, like The Beach, the movie.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
a lot of that. So it's kind of really around that, like, that kind of like mindset of living this fabulous life, and so there is a specific type of like aesthetic and kind of idea, and so whether it was like Princess Margaret when she was in the island of Mystique, like kind of running away from like royal life and living her best life on an island, and so that's really what so Aristofreak was kind of like this very like, it was like for me like the modern bohemian.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's really where it came from. And so I think when I was coming up with this style, I think I was I think a lot of like global influences, people who travel, people who want to like, they get excited about bringing things in their finds and telling a story within their home, you know? And so I think that's really kind of like where that really come from. And, I look back at like the pre-Raphaelites, essentially that's to me, when I look as an art period of like what Aristofreak was the pre-Raphaelites basically coming with this very traditional like technique of painting. But then they really like started invigorating these bold pops of color. And really changing that story into a different aesthetic. And that to me was kind of like what Aristofreak, or not kind of, what Aristofreak meant. And so, I mean, I think my style is still very like global. It has a lot of layer to it.
Wow.
So now it's the next chapter. So it's like you're post Aristofreak to grounded in LA. So that's what we have to define.
Grounded in LA, exactly. And and I think like I basically say like my clientele is basically Burning Man billionaires.
I've been holding this back because that was the first thing I thought of. I keep saying like I've been to burner parties with these people before. Like I totally understand that. I totally get that vibe, and it is so fun and it's playful, and it very much has its own, the Burning Man billionaire. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say that because it sounds ostentatious. So, but the LJ Core article was really good. Like David wrote, he was like, "Burner Man is burner aesthetic." I was like, "Oh, I like that. That's like a lot more elegant."
And you do go there every year, right?
I do, and what's crazy? Like I went in 2000 and 2001 when I was a wee lassie, and then I had a 22-year hiatus, and I didn't go.
Oh wow, okay.
So then I recently went back, and and someone had asked me like, "Oh my God, what's it like?" And I was like, "It feels exactly the same. The energy is still the same. Obviously, it's much different, but the energy is the same, and it really felt like coming home." And so when I'm there are these incredible moments that you're like, you're in these environments that have been created, and you're like, the amount of creativity and the production and what the self-expression is so incredible. Like those are the moments that I'm like, wow, this is so special.
Yeah.
So I still enjoy being at those types of, that's probably the only festival that I really go to. That I think is really unique and something different. And so I still go back. I'm deciding, I'll go back this year.
Yeah.
Now, no matter how long I go back,
This
how
is
long
debatable.
It's debatable, but it's like I think it's really interesting. It's like a full circle almost, to go when I was 21 and then all of a sudden to come back at 45, and
I love
be like,
that.
wow, like here it is, here I am,
Yeah.
Maybe not in my crazy Spider-Man underwear outfits, a little different now, but.
But the outfits are still are a little bit more
Yeah,
sophisticated.
more sophisticated now.
Yeah.
Still like, hot pants.
I love that. Okay. I've also always wanted to go to Burning Man. I've never been, but that's definitely on my bucket list.
You should go. I tell people if you ever get invited and you have an opportunity, go once in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I tell people.
I think
Just
it's
try it
like
once.
this time every year, I'm just like, oh, I should have probably started planning for that last year, because you have to plan for it for a while.
You have yeah. And the first timers, you always overpack.
Yeah.
You always overpack. It's just that's what happened. And what's so incredible about it? There's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yeah.
We have
Well, your outfit, you need to plan.
you do need to plan.
Yes.
That's very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
Planning is. I mean, there are spreadsheets that go around these different groups
And
that you have, like,
weekly
the checkoff
meetings.
list.
Yeah.
It's insane. Some of them are like different tabs and like.
Yeah. I used to date someone that went every year, and so I got the behind the scenes stuff about it. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and then the different groups of the different sub it's just so it's so interesting. And there's negative people like, oh my God, I don't want to be partying for like 5 days or being there. And it's not even just that. It's just this incredible like experience that happens nowhere. And to be honest, my favorite moments have been when I get to ride my e-bike, on the on the trash fence. And the trash fence is essentially the fence that basically protects the park. That's where the end of Burning Man is.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's so peaceful.
Right.
And you get to ride your bike, and I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm on vacation. Like you're in this like far off land in the middle of like nowhere. And it's a beautiful park, and so it's kind of an interesting. And then the huge like complete opposite, when it turns at night and it becomes this incredible like lit city. Yeah. And the stuff that you see, like, when the man burns, all of the art cars come out, and it blows your mind like what you see.
Yeah.
It's so incredible.
Wow.
All right. As long as there's no flash flood, we should go.
Like there was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
I was at the Mudburn.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's called the Mudburn.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I know that we've got to wrap up a little bit. So I have 3 questions that I ask all of our guests.
Okay.
I think I sent them to you ahead of time, so you should know them.
I didn't. I'm
That's
sorry,
okay.
but
Don't worry about it.
Quite all right.
Don't worry about it.
Shoot
Don't worry
from
about
the
it.
I watch Adel's. I listen to her, so maybe I'll.
Oh yeah, you'll remember these for sure. So first question is, what is the messiest place in your home?
The messiest place in my home. Well, I want to say it's either my closet, but not really. Right now, it's currently my terrace. I have this like half-ass project of like trying to like do stuff to it, and then I like lost wind, and so there's a bunch of shit there. So that's my terrace.
Got it. Lost a little steam, but you'll pick it back up.
Yeah,
It'll be maybe eventually.
I will.
Second question. when you walk into a new space, what is the first thing that you notice?
When I walk into a new space, I mean, are you talking about
Like a place that you've never
public
been in before,
space?
like whether it's walking into a place that you're going to be designing or, maybe a house that someone else has done or someone else's home? Like what is the first thing that you notice? You can have just different answers for each one too. That's fine.
Well, I think when you're walking into a new home, when you're walking into a potential project that's like a construction. So, I mean, I think that's just kind of like you feel the bones of the place, you know. When you're walking into a finished home, someone else's, home that's like perfectly done. Of course, you start analyzing everything that's going on. You look at everything. I think I think what I wait for, I wait for the feeling that clicks to see if everything kind of like works. Yeah, and this is a subconscious thing. This is like internally happening, and I think this happens to every space that you go to.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
whether you're going into a commercial space
Yeah.
or you're going into you kind of like subconsciously like all the things in your brain are like tick 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 tick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it works. Or you're either dissecting everything.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah. You're like, I'm uncomfortable in here. I don't know what it is. And I'll figure it out, Yeah.
Yeah, and usually you can pretty much tell
Yeah.
what's not working. Either it's like a color palette could be quite off or like a fabric, So like yesterday I went to this like woman's house to like she was, and that's the thing, like she had like bought all these pillows and she wanted me to and so I just kind of came in and then we just rearranged some stuff and then all of a sudden the color just came together. And I think what it is, it's the composition. You're waiting to see if the composition works, and if it clicks, and then you're like, okay, then your brain relaxes and you don't have to dissect it.
Yeah.
And figure out what's wrong.
It's interesting because we've had quite a few answers, and sometimes it's like the smell or the light. You're the second designer that
Like takes everything all in. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an interesting, because I think I'm probably closer to you, where when I walk in and it's just like this feeling of like, okay, what's how do I
Dissecting.
feel
Yeah.
dissecting?
Yeah.
But it does happen fairly quickly, and it's interesting.
Like because you it's subconsciously happening to you. You don't even realize that it's happening. I mean, you do obviously, but and and when you're with another designer, it's always funny because they'll all be like blip 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 blip, you're like, yep, that's right, That's always that kind of like you already immediately see what it is, and it's so funny because. I think it's like a feeling, right?
Yeah.
Whether that designer or that person, whoever created the space, whether they hit the mark or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're always looking for.
Yeah.
Because sometimes most of the time it doesn't get to hit that mark.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hitting the mark, the last question is, what is your favorite space, either in your home or in a space you designed?
Oh, this is a good one. My bedroom.
Really?
I love my bedroom because I was just talking to, my partner Lars. I was like, in the summer, in the winter time, like sometimes I'm just so tired, I'm exhausted, and by 6 o'clock it's dark already, and I just want to crawl into bed. So, or like waking up and not having to do anything and just watch TV in bed. So,
I love
how
it.
lazy
Yeah.
I am. No, that's not true. It's just like my decompression.
No, everybody needs time to rest. Like
Yeah,
especially
it's
when
really
you are
important.
so busy, you're doing so many things all the time. Like that rest time is so valuable.
Yeah, very much so. And I think I like to also design dining rooms and bedrooms. Those are my
Yeah.
two favorite places I like to design. I like to do moody dining rooms or really like kind of theatrical, like, dining rooms, because I want people to engage. I want, I imagine them having beautiful parties and having these beautiful experiences and creating this like this space for them, this stage essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Creating a stage for them to really live their, to entertain and to do the things that they want to, connect with people. And then for bedrooms, it's so intimate, having that really like, intimate experience with your client, creating that. So like that introvert extrovert thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely. Peti, it's been so wonderful to talk with you.
Yeah.
So what's next for
Yeah.
you? You had the beautiful cover on Luxe, which was outstanding.
Anything else we should keep our eyes out for?
So yes, I am putting myself out there for, I'm trying to work on some new, just kind of like, again, like building my network of Los Angeles and getting new clients and new projects, and kind of putting my foot forward into helping be, you know, an advocate for designing LA, or you know, or the new rebuild, and kind of being mindful about that and thinking about the types of styles and homes, and just new projects.
New
Yes,
projects.
yes.
All right.
I would love to do a boutique hotel.
Ooh,
Ooh.
yes.
That's on my list, because I worked in hotels, and so I really, even my first villa that I designed, like I was thinking like a hotel, you know. So I would really love to design a boutique hotel, like, you know, something. I'm having this experience of something really special and intimate.
Ooh, I like that.
But like fun also.
Yeah.
I would stay there.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you again so much for being on
Thank
today,
you.
for
Thank
taking
you
your
for having
time.
me.
And we are making lunch. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, what a treat.
all right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Bye.